Hey, hey, what's up, everybody? Uh-oh.
Caught me off
We
guard
mu-
there. Sorry.
Are
There
we
we are.
muted? Are we muted? Can you hear me? Hey, fellas.
How's it going?
What's happening?
Looks like you guys survived the storms last week.
Yeah, man, I think everything. It's like I haven't done this in a while. Here we go. No, that's the. Holy Moses! All of my stuff literally just disconnected.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh no, Brian's gonna be gone. He's my tech guy. So
Uh-oh. I can see
Let's
so
Brian.
see if that. Let's see if
so
that works now.
welcome back to the stream team, everybody. Glad you could be here tonight. We do apologize about last week, but when storms are rolling through Ohio and two of the members of the stream team are in Ohio, we just had to make a call there at the end, and I think we made the right choice. So why don't you guys tell us how you fared during the storm and just give us a little update on that to start off with? Kind of what happened during that storm, if you had any damage, or just let us know what was going on and how it turned out.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, the first storm that, gosh, we had. What do we have, Greg? Like 3 systems that came through. I
Yeah.
think we had more like limbs and stuff down during the first storm, and we're out of power for, oh my gosh, almost all day. It was pretty hairy up here. I mean, I think they were saying that there was like 70 plus mile an hour, like steady winds. So trees down everywhere. I mean, there's like, I would drive down the street, and there were trees on cars, trees on wires.
Wow.
It was pretty bad. So thankfully, because I have like the hive stands that could, um, none of my hives took any damage. So
That's great news.
thankfully, yeah, I was worried. The only thing I was worried about is I switched over one of my lids to one from Greg that had the hole in it, so I could put a bucket feeder on that colony, and I was just worried about that bucket. But them buggers propolized that bucket on there so darn tight that when I was over there today just to check things, I had to walk up back up into the honey building and get a hive tool to pop that bucket off. So they had that thing sealed good.
Yes.
But yeah,
Good.
everything as far as the storm, thankfully I didn't get any direct damage. So
Good deal. That's good to hear. Greg, how about you, man?
Yeah, like Brian said, it was a course of events there, and you weren't quite sure what the next round was going to be. Real similar boat to Brian. We lost power. Power was off and on, and when you're on the homestead or the farm, that's you build as much redundancy as you can within your systems, but at the end of the day, there are some systems that are just absolutely vulnerable and critical. And one of the worst things to have going on during storms like that I can think of is two. Well, it's one thing, and it's called an incubator, and that's either A, queen cells, or B, chicks. Um, we'll talk more about queen cells and grafting a little bit later on tonight, and I'm pretty excited about that. But we had a lot of chicks. Susie had chicks in the brooder, and the eggs, of course, were outside of the incubator. But when they're in the brooder there, and they're so young, they can't be without heat for very long. Anyways, we were losing power so frequently, it seemed like a matter of time. I know, Brian, you've been here. We live in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and so it is very hilly, um, very steep climbs, and a lot of trees. Just a lot of hardwood forest here, and so a lot of the electric lines are just kind of cut through. It's just, for the most part, it seemed like cow paths with electric poles running through them.
mhm.
And anyways, it's inevitably every single wind event or storm, there are always trees on top of lines, and so you just never really know what you're going to get. So long story short, we did have some hives that got toppled. We had some lids that got blown off. We didn't really lose any infrastructure, thank God. The old bank barn had some metal flapping, so now I got to get up there at some point and kind of get that hemmed up. But anyways, it was real minimal. It was one of those things. Once, because of that storm that came through, that'll kind of tie in, I think, to what we talk about tonight too. But When a storm comes through and knocks you on your ear, and you've got colonies laying wide open, getting rained on, and you feel terrible. You're a little more in tune with every single windstorm, every single thunderstorm kind of coming through. We had tornado warnings, tornado watches. It was insane. I'm not sure what's going on. You know, I don't want to be the alarmist, but it does seem like in the last 6 months, we have seen wind events that we have never, ever seen before. You know, 70 to 90 mile an hour gust is insane here. We just don't see it. So it really is making us reevaluate and also kind of change things up a little bit as far as infrastructure when it comes to bees. So long story short, we are absolutely blessed to be in the shape we're in. We did suffer some damage, nothing we can't build back from. And I'm just glad it's behind us. And, you know, for the most part, no harm, no foul. Bruce, how about you? I know you got, seems like Tornado Alley is moving closer west and closer to you guys. How'd you guys do?
Well, we always, you know, down here, it's historically, we have weather events, we have tornadoes and stuff that pop around. I personally have never witnessed one, but we've had them happen all around. I don't necessarily want to witness one. We had one go probably about a half a mile to a mile from my house here a few years back, and it was like a kind of a small one, but it did some damage. And so, fortunately, I think that one pretty much stayed kind of down in the swampy areas, you know, not too far from where I live here. But we've been, I mean, we haven't had the severe weather here. We actually had a small storm system, I think about a week ago, maybe a little more than a week ago, where it twisted a tree off right next to the school where my kids went, just right there. But it was like, but that's the only damage. I think there wasn't any more damage. A tree, big old tree just twisted it and laid it down just right in the yard of that. No damage to the house. I don't think. It was kind of crazy, but I know that there's been some horrible weather over Mississippi, all up through, you know, the Midwest. And you guys have had a lot of crazy storms up that way too. And we've had some crazy weather. We had a lot of rain. It's been just very inconsistent. It's just been a crazy weather year, and the plants are trying to figure it out. You know, it's kind of crazy how the plants, they'll start when it's warm, and then we have a cold snap, or the weather gets crazy, and then they slow down, and then I have no idea what's going to happen. We've got flowers blooming sooner than they normally do. We've got just a weird thing going on here. But as far as the weather goes, it's been a little bit wonky down here. But we are in a tornado area down here in Alabama, and fortunately, in my entire life so far to this point, I've been blessed to miss that. But they do happen down here, and I mean, I've seen some of the video footage of some of the tornadoes that happened in the Midwest the past few weeks, and my goodness, you know, and now with phones, people can capture that footage a lot more readily. And man, some of those storms, people right in the edge of them, some of the crazy things, it's almost like that old movie Twisters. You remember that movie back in the day?
Oh yeah.
Movie is almost looks just like that. It's pretty realistic, you know, representation of it, I think. But anyway, as far as the bees go, I guess you guys have hit on it a little bit. Brian, you've got a lot going on at your thing, at your apiary I've seen on the videos, and Greg, obviously you're just both guns ablaze. And then down here, we had a lot of issues. The weather in California was crazy this year, and we've had some issues with the pollination bees. They're supposed to come home and unload tomorrow night, and so we should have had them, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, about a month ago actually. We probably should have had those bees back, and so I'm just eager to get them here and get them on the ground and see how they look. I heard all kinds of horror stories, but then most of the people I see cracking their hives open, they look pretty good. And so we'll see how they look, you know, in the next couple of 3 days. I'm just going to crack in and see what's going on. But other than that, just made some splits, and, you know, it's just both guns ablaze, and we're trying to stay ahead of the bees a little bit with this crazy weather we're having.
Yeah, it is crazy. But, like Greg said, I can't, like, we typically, like where I'm located at, we typically will get wind that comes through the farmers' fields. You know, it just comes over the trees and it just comes through the field. But when you get anything above 40, 50, you know, and you're getting clear up there, Cindy, when you're getting clear up to 70 plus mile an hour winds, it's just a whole different ball game. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we did have to postpone last week. It was definitely the right decision to make. We appreciate all who were jumping on about that time. We made the decision. Literally, those squalls came through up there like 10, 15 minutes before the thing was supposed to start. And we pretty much postponed it right then. It was within 15, 20 minutes before. And so, and who knows, we might have gotten through it or we might not have, but Greg, you had stuff to take care of immediately. And Brian, I think you were hunkered down. And so we made the right decision there. And I think everybody on this chat tonight in the comment section, or the three of us have all experienced scary weather. And it's just, if there's scary weather, then, a live stream is not the most important thing to worry about. It's just taking care of your own, getting in a safe place and just dealing with your own situation. So, but we're back. I'm excited to be here tonight. Kind of been looking forward to it. I think the topic tonight is going to be fun to talk about. I think it's a topic that applies whether you have one hive and you're a hobby beekeeper or if you're a commercial guy. And I think it's really good. Before we get started, I did want to address a little housekeeping here. If I can find it. There was a comment up there. We kind of, on our last live chat, we were talking about making queens and stuff, Greg, and swarm cell splits and things like that. And here it is right here. I guess people were a little bit irritated at me, I think, at us for cutting that thing off. But I know you guys, we needed to end that stream that night. But let's talk about swarm cell hive build. Can we finish that? We're going to Greg, you and I are going to do an interview soon and talk about a lot of these issues. But do you kind of want to, I don't remember where we were. I know we were talking about something. I didn't realize we cut you off then, or we stopped in the middle of something. But do you remember what he's talking about here with the swarm cell build? I think we were talking about swarm cells and making splits and making queens that way. But would you rather just wait until...
a little fried.
Okay.
Here at the moment, it's
okay. It was kind of, we were just jumping from thing to thing that night. And so, Mike, we will address this. We're going to do a video strictly on queen building, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. We're going to do that pretty soon. And so, hold your phone. We kind of, I didn't realize, I had several comments after that, or several comments about, oh no, don't stop, because we had some good things going, but we needed to end. We were up against the clock that night on some things. But
I think it might have had to do with I get in trouble a little bit for just saying it like it is with no, there's no dagger, there's no double-edged sword. A lot of the things are just based and built on so much trial and error that it's just painful. And if I can help folks avoid some of that and find success in a way that is sustainable, then that's something that I feel like I don't intentionally step on anyone's toes, but it's messages and it's our experience that I've got no problem putting out there. And like you guys hear me say a lot, I'll say it again now. My grandpa was an old country preacher, and I can remember sitting in them old wood pews, and you think, why is Grandpa picking on me? I swear, every time I come here on Sunday, Grandpa was just picking on me. And why has he got to tell everything that I've done to everybody else here? Well, sometimes it's one of those you need to check yourself kind of a situation. Grandpa wasn't talking about me. There was about 20 other people sitting in those pews that needed to hear that same message. And I'm thankful that Grandpa just was shot straight and spoke truth and hit people where it counts. And so I feel like, folks call us bevangelists now, I guess, is something that is a name that's kind of sticking. I make no bones about it. I don't apologize for speaking truth, and I don't apologize for sharing our experience in the bee yard and growing a business. But I will say, if that is something that rubs you the wrong way, or is something that you don't agree with, that's totally fine. That's totally cool. What I would ask you to do is just when you get to a point and you have your experience to share, just share it. So anyways, that all being said, a lot of folks try to get into a lot of different things into beekeeping. I don't want to say prematurely, but they will jump the gun in a lot of situations. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to learn and to do a lot of these things in beekeeping. But when you look at it as a business, sometimes where you end up chasing your tail and you end up, stepping over $1 to pick up a quarter. And that's what a lot of these methods and approaches are when it comes to making money with beekeeping, is you automatically think, I've got to have the 1-ton truck, I've got to have the skid steer, I need 10 or 15 or 20 queens this year, I need to start grafting right now, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I've been there, I've done that, and there is a no nonsense way to kind of go about this, that I only have that perspective because I was a knucklehead once. I'm still a
Sure.
knucklehead. So that's when you hear us talking tonight, when you hear us talking in the future, and when you've heard me in the past, that's where we're going. Ian says he's picked up a lot of quarters. See, Ian knows it's painful, but
Yeah,
it's something
absolutely.
that we'll put out there unapologetically.
Yeah, as far as that goes, Mike, we'll talk more about that. And I do remember a little bit about that, but he was just basically talking, Greg, about how you kind of utilize, I guess, colonies that are about ready to swarm as cell builders. But we'll talk about that another time. But before we actually going with the topic, we got to get going here pretty quick. But remember, we do have super chat, super stickers enabled. If you feel like you could donate, we'd appreciate it. We do try to put a lot of preparation and time into these things, and it is all appreciated. If you could think of us, we'd appreciate that. If not, that's perfectly fine too. But tonight's topic is making money with bees. I actually put a poll out on my YouTube channel in the community section, and we got a lot of feedback. And the two top categories were making money with bees was number one, and splits was number two. And we've talked a fair amount about splits already. And so, but the number one category was making money with bees. And I thought it was a good topic because we have three of us on here at different levels. Obviously, Greg, you use it to feed your family. Brian, you're the hobby guy, but you do have to have some money rolling in to keep that thing going. And then I'm also trying to make money at it, but it's not my primary income. And so I think we have a really good mix right here of folks at different levels that probably fit most of the people on the chat right now. And, I know we've got some pure commercial beekeepers that have hundreds, thousands of colonies on here, like Ian and others, but I think it'll be an interesting conversation to have, and hopefully help kind of give some people some pointers depending on where you're at with your beekeeping adventure, and give you some ideas of how you can, if you're not really trying to make a profit at least be able to kind of cover your equipment and have the money coming in to just kind of cover your costs. And so I thought, what do you guys think if we kind of start with Brian? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the money aspect of what you've done and what you're doing now, and how what you're trying to do in your operation. Then we'll just kind of go from there, and obviously we'll just kind of pitch in as we go along.
Sure. So I'll start way back. Like as a hobbyist, I'm really not looking I'm really not looking at my beekeeping as like a source of an income. My whole thought process is, if I could build to the point where it's a self-sustainable hobby, then to me that is win-win. Now, for me to get to the point where I'm at right now, I think like any businesses, you have to kind of look at it a little bit like that. You're not going to make any profit in your first few years. And I think last year being my 6th year, this will be my 7th this year. Last year was the first year that I had enough of a honey harvest that I think I came out somewhat about even for the year. And that was buying a new extractor. That was, getting the uncapping tank. So I looked at just smaller pieces of equipment that would make managing my honey harvest that time. I was looking at efficiency. So, and at my scale, I'm just purely looking at the bees as a self-sustainable hobby, and that's it. I will look, and what I'll suggest, and I know there's some others on here that probably know more about this than what I do. This year here will be the first year that I'm going to look at some farmers markets, just because the amount of honey that I had last year, and probably I'm thinking what I'll get this year, just that word of mouth sales, I can't sell it all by word of mouth. So I do need to look at doing some farmers markets and things like that. And it's a great way to connect with the community. You can get that word of mouth spread even more just by going out to some markets a couple times. But that's all I'm looking at. With my scale, and people laugh, this year I'm probably going to be at 20 here very, very soon. Probably I'm thinking I'll be at 18 colonies in about 10 days. And at that scale, it's getting very busy. And as long as you invest a little bit of money up front and accept that this beekeeping journey or hobby, as you want to say, if you accept you're not going to make money out of it for the first few years, you need to do that, and not be upset in that, you know, um, first year I didn't get this massive honey harvest and I don't have all this money rolling in. Just think of it like a business. And that's, I think, the angle that I took, and it's helped me to not really, look at when I've had poor harvests. I really didn't get upset because I'm like, man, I want to buy this equipment, and beekeeping is expensive. So you have to look at it like that. And then, I also dabble also, I mean, as the hobbyist, I have the time. I also dabble with the 3D printing stuff, so that can kind of supplement a little bit in, because whatever money I made from the Hive life, that basically bought equipment that I'll use this year. So as a hobbyist, I kind of try and keep myself grounded in the fact that I'm not going to, not going and buying a 1 ton, and I'm not going to get a skidster to move pallets. I just kind of stay grounded in that fact that, it's a hobby. If I can build it into a self-sustaining hobby, that's win-win, like anybody. If you have a hobby that pays for itself, that's win-win. Um, you know,
Yeah, I know you've also, outside of the actual bees, you've got the, with 3D printing, you've got the little hives, the little mini hives
yeah,
and you can do a shameless plug here for those if you want. And also you and Brian, or not you and Brian, you and Jason have created those queen dials.
yeah,
And that's another thing you've kind of been working on. And so not only are you able to make some
yeah,
money with your honey and what you're doing with the bees, but you're also kind of able to, and this community we have here, you're able to kind of reach out and connect with people. And in a sense,
yep.
that's almost like a payment as well, just that satisfaction
It
that you
is,
have.
yeah. As a hobbyist, I know, even if I were to go from my scale where I'm at, and let's just say 20, everybody will be happy with hashtag Brian 20. If I were to go from my scale to 100, the amount of time that it would take,
Yeah, it takes a
it
lot
would
of
it would
time.
suck all of my extra time. By having a hobby that would take that amount of time, I'm looking over to my left and there's my printers. Those would just be shut off because I would not have time to run those. So,
Yeah.
like you said, there's, the Queen Right dial that I'm working with Jason on, that would just shut that down. The development, we're developing some extra parts, some extra tops for them. That way it's just not the one status. We're working on some other tops, so it's top secret. But I wouldn't have time for that. So I think as the hobbyist, you do have a little bit more time to tinker. When you go into a sideliner level or a commercial level, you don't really have much time to tinker. And I always go, Greg probably knows what I'm going to say. I always go to those moments where I'm out working in his bee yard, and after a couple boxes that we crack open, I always look over and I'm like, "Thank you for this because I never want to do this."
Yeah.
You know,
I like this comment from Keith here. He says, most of my hobbies are money pits you just dump money in. Beekeeping is the first I've had that actually has some income
yeah,
and not just outflow. And that's very true. I tell people
yeah,
all the time, get a hobby like golf or most of them, and you just can't, you don't make money at them,
and
unless you're a professional at them, you don't make money at them, but
yeah,
you can enjoy them. But a lot of those things are money
mhm.
pits. And so,
And what Keith said there too is spot on, because with beekeeping, it's not just honey. You know, you could go into it, even I think in a hobbyist level, I could split a couple colonies, make up some nukes, and sell nukes so you could sell the bees. You have wax that, it's nice outside. So what did I put outside today was that my Lyson solar wax melter, and you can get into making candles. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, get get some cash flow coming in.
Yeah.
That's the one. I think that's the one beauty with beekeeping is, there are those that have bees for honey. There are those that have bees for the bees, but then you have all those byproducts where you have the wax, you have the propolis, et cetera, that you can make tinctures, you can do whatever you want. And it's a beautiful hobby.
And if you see, Cindy's on here, and if
Yeah.
you see the stuff she's doing, of course they have the bees and the honey, but she does so much more with it, including the social media and everything. So it's pretty, so much. It just is almost, it's almost an infinite number of directions you can go, and that's one thing
Yeah.
that's cool about it.
Yeah.
So, I had something I wanted to say. Oh, I wanted to tell Greg, I've really, over the past probably year and a half, with me out here doing my sideliner thing, I've struggled with trying to figure out everything, and Greg's kind of helped me. Greg, you've kind of helped me a little bit be able to focus a little better. I'm still not where I need to be yet, but you've helped me with that, because just the way you talk and the things that you mentioned, some of the thoughts that you've provided and shared just here on this chat and on personal phone calls, this made me really think about some things, and some things I thought I was ready to do. I don't think I am quite yet ready to do them. I mean, I'm not ready to jump off and do it full time quite yet, but maybe we can get there. So, hey, I appreciate all the super chats coming in, guys. We really appreciate that. That really helps us be able to keep these things rolling. We got Brian, of course, I appreciate it. Ian, Lisa, Grammy's midwife, and Sweet Harlan, Jamie up there. I appreciate it, guys. So, Greg, I guess you were a hobby beekeeper at one time too, weren't you? And so did you look at it from the start as a kind of a money-making opportunity, or did you start off just doing it for fun, a couple of hives in the backyard?
Great question. I think one of the, as you guys are talking, my brain is like, it's going, it's so many different directions, and I'm having conversations with myself, and then I'm catching myself asking myself questions and then answering questions, and then realizing I'm talking to myself, and no one's ever going to hear that right now, because there's so many directions that I want to go with this conversation tonight. So maybe I'll leave most of the pointed answers to any kind of questions that folks would have. But one of the things that we have adopted, a lot of folks know us as Nature's Image Farm, and the tagline is the contrary farmstead. That goes back to the core of who we are, what we do, and why we do it. I got to share that a little bit in West Virginia on how our life kind of met tragedy, and we decided to completely just uproot from the suburban HOA life and get our kids back out to the country and learn all these life lessons with the kids. A lot of what we do is based on trying to rewrite our family's history and to put down those new roots. In doing that, it's very consuming financially, and as far as your time to get into to figure these things out. If you weren't raised on a farm, and if you weren't raised on a homestead, the hard lessons learned just pile up. Thankfully, it's been fodder for conversation, and it's been fodder for presentations and sharing our journey with folks. But one of the things that we absolutely had to do out of necessity was create what we call the farmstead model, where it was somewhere between homestead and a farm, where all these things that we wanted to do on the farm, some of the very early things, raising meat birds. In order for our large family to consume pastured poultry, raised on pasture, non-GMO feed, it's very expensive. So we had to figure out, what does that cost for us to produce what we need, right? And we have this number. Okay, how much extra, since we're already doing it, can we raise and do to at least break even. So our cost for that product is at a net zero. Well, we once we figured that out, then it was turkeys, then it was pigs. Started trying to dabble with cows and rabbits and nursery stock and comfrey, and the list goes on and on and on. Bees were a part of that, where as a homesteader, most homesteaders would agree, is you are throwing everything against the wall and you see what sticks, because there are so many things that sound awesome, that sound like would be a great idea. And like any great idea, a lot of these things, there's no context or scale behind it when you learn it. And so here you are trying to figure it all out and slap it against the wall. That's where beekeeping kind of came in for us. I've mentioned it before, but somebody came and approached us at a homesteading talk and wanted to trade pork for their beekeeping equipment and a little bit of mentoring. That's how we got started. So we came into it from a net zero standpoint, and then immediately decided, if we're going to try to grow this and turn this into something that does have a yield, what do we want out of it? And I think that's one of the most important things. Anyone who's looking to make money with bees, or on a farm or on a homestead, is ask yourself why it is that you want to do this, and why is it this thing that you're choosing to be the one that's going to create revenue. It took us a little while to kind of figure those things out, but when we found that our passion was raising bees and raising nukes, raising queens, once we figured that out, then as we started growing our apiary, we figured out, okay, what is our trajectory this year? How do we want to grow? What's that going to cost? How much equipment, frames, bottom boards, lids, feeders? What's that going to take to do it? Okay, we figured out, okay, let's grow to this year. Just like Brian is a closet sideliner. He's going to be at 30 before he knows it. He's scheming in the background. Well, I'm saying 12 to 20, but if it gets a little haywire and I need to add 10 more, what's that going to cost me to do it? Like there's a cost risk analysis. So the farmstead model is something that we put together to make sure that whatever experience that we want to have on the homestead, we can do it at a net zero. Now, take into consideration, just like 99% of everybody listening to this, here's the catch. If you don't value your time, nobody else will. But what homesteaders and farmers do is we are putting so much time into these products that although it might be a financial net zero, if we place a value on our time to do these things, now we're all of a sudden really upside down. But the farmstead model is something that we incorporated into our beekeeping, and we still do to this day. We plan our growth based on our revenue and the business. So the business is folding in all those profits right back into itself, that whatever growth we have is at a net zero. So, Bruce, the question was, did we start off as a hobby? Were we going to go into business? The answer is kind of yes and no. We've kind of gone into just about everything here on the homestead, especially when you have no money and you have a large family and you're bootstrapping absolutely everything. You have to find ways to make that thing that you want to do. You have to find a way to pay for it. And that doesn't mean me going to getting a second job at Walmart or driving a truck third shift. If I want to do something, I want to be all in. And that'll lead to more conversation later, Bruce, about owning your time, and where the one of the greatest limiting factors for anybody who is actually trying to make any significant amount of revenue with beekeeping is whether or not you own your time.
Man, I like that. I've never thought of it like that, but that is true, for sure. In my situation, of course, my initial plan was to have a couple of hives down at my mom's property there and just play with bees a little bit. But as soon as I opened up the first colony or two, I knew that was I don't know if I knew that wasn't going to happen, but it didn't take me long to be completely obsessed with bees. And here we are 10 years later, almost exactly 10 years later. I got my first couple of beehives on the 27th of April in 2013. And so we're right there at the 10-year mark. And, I've been, as you know, from watching my channel, I'm obsessed with the bees. For me, I'm a little strange. Therapy for me is going and getting in the bees. I mean, that's how I like to relax and unwind. Kind of weird, but that's how it is. I know many people on here understand that. So, but yeah, as far as I saw it as a money-making opportunity pretty quickly. I started, trying to sell a little honey here or there. Thanks, Matt, for the super sticker. Really appreciate that. And, but I don't know if I looked at it as a business as much. Initially, I just wanted to grow and have a lot of hives, and just because I thought it was cool to do that. But as I've grown, my numbers and figured out a little better how to do that and become more, here's that word again, intentional with what I'm doing. I'm beginning to see the value of that time, of being more efficient, of kind of planning ahead a little better. I say I want to do 35 splits. Why do I want to do 35 splits? What's the purpose behind that or whatever? And so that's kind of where I'm at. I've also had to kind of predict, say I make 30 splits at the end of, at the end of February, early March, early spring splits don't always do as well. So, I need to anticipate a little loss there and things like that, or maybe not 100% success, which is what you always want to have. And so, but I've found in my situation, Brian hit on this a little bit. There are many different ways to make money with bees. Just here in this local area, I think about Davis and Tyler, the two guys that I kind of, we kind of talk back and forth a lot. Davis is the guy that I went to California with for the almonds, and Tyler is the guy that we loaded the bees up at his bee yard, and we kind of all talk amongst each other. Thanks for the super sticker, Dave. I appreciate that. But Davis is all about pollination. That's what he wants to do. He wants to make bees, load up a truck, and send them to California. Tyler wants to do that, but he also wants to sell a lot of bees. And so he just is always feeding his bees, always making nukes, always, he sells a lot of nukes. He also does the pollination. Neither one of those guys is super into trying to do retail honey sales. I mean, everybody does a little bit of that, I think, but Davis has pretty much gone completely wholesale. He just takes it down to the honey packer and he drops his boxes off, they extract it, and they cut him a check. And that's what he prefers to do. My personal preference, the way I've made 90% of the money, 90% of the money I've made in beekeeping is through selling honey. And a lot of that has been retail or wholesale to local farmers markets, or, little food, little vegetable stands and things on the side of the road, or some local stores actually carry my honey as well. And so that's kind of what I enjoy doing. I enjoy the honey process. I just am in awe at what the bees can do when they stick that honey in those hives. And I just really enjoy it. And so that's something I've always enjoyed. It is extremely hard work, as we all know, but I do enjoy that. And so I don't mind the process of decrystallizing it, bottling it up, and delivering it to the stores. I think it gives me some satisfaction to do that. And I've made a decent amount of money doing it. Now, I will tell you this, my wife's working on the taxes, and she sent me the money in and money out, the spreadsheet, so to speak, as far as how much I made and how much I have in the company or in my business. And I realized I'm not ready to live on that yet because I made quite a bit of money, but then we also had to spend quite a bit of money to get to that point. And so I'm really trying to kind of be careful, maybe scale back a little bit on what I'm spending, and continue to try and make some money to go into it even more if I decide to double down and lean into that. And so, I've done a little bit of wax. I've done a little bit of, I've sold a few nukes here or there. I've sent a few bees off to pollination. I've done a little bit of a lot of it. But as far as where my sweet spot has been from making a little bit of money, it's been with the honey. Mm-hmm. And so, I hope, like Greg said, you got to value your time. And I don't know how I can do a whole lot more as far as, expand into more areas. I really want to expand into everything, but I have to kind of stay in my lane, so to speak. And I can, like I said, I can do a little bit of all of it, but to really go big time and make a profit at more than one income stream, I have to be able to have more time, or at least either have more time or be more efficient with the time that I have. There are two different ways to utilize that time. And I think as a hobbyist, Brian, you've mentioned before that you just really enjoy, if you want to look at a queen for 10 minutes, you want to be able to do that. Whereas Greg, in your situation, I mean, you can't do that. You've got to just, you got to be through 4 or 5 colonies in that amount of time or more. And so, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm getting faster, but sometimes I do just kind of go out and chill with the bees a little bit. But if I had the number of colonies, if I was paying, to put food on my table with them, I would have to really ramp it up too. So those are all considerations to make. So Greg, why don't we shift a little more into your side of things? You've already kind of introduced some of the things you're doing. Share some of the thoughts with you. And guys, if you have any comments or questions about, particularly tonight, the money-making aspect of beekeeping, go ahead and throw them up there. If we get to, we may not get to them all, but if we'll try to, if it's something that we can segue into and answer for you. Take it away, Greg.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of folks know kind of what we do and what we're about. You know, we sell nukes, we raise queens, we deliver packages, we have a supply shop. There's a lot of different ways that we can create revenue, but I'm not the one who believes in coincidence. But today is a prime example, I think, of just one more thing that I want to throw out for folks to think about. As I mentioned, if you don't value your time, nobody else will. And where that becomes important is as you're trying to find ways to make money. It's okay to throw things against the wall, see what sticks. For someone who wants to graft 10 or 20 queens, and they want to invest the assets and the resources and the expense to go and do it, if they're having fun and it's an experience and they're living life, then that's totally awesome. If you look at that from a financial standpoint, it makes just about 0 cents to invest the time and then allocate the resources of your bees to do it if you need 5 or 10 queens. And even if you need 5 or 10 queens a week, it wasn't really until I accepted that, and that was really hard to do, and try to figure out, okay, how much time am I spending doing all the things within this business? How much time am I spending doing all the things within each enterprise of the business, meaning nukes or queens or supplies? Or today we're out going through colonies, and it's a beautiful day. It's the first 75-degree day. The pears are blooming. The dandelions are on fire. Anyone who's kept bees for any length of time knows what happens on a day like today. And we've been saying it for such a long time. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but spring has been here for a very long time, whether or not you accepted it. And swarms have started. We are officially in swarm season. And here I am going through a nuke yard. And you guys know what happened within minutes. I'm laying out some frames. I'm going to add some frames to this box. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I walk away, and right about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I turn around and I come back, and not only one, not two, but 3 swarms out of the middle of nowhere are all over the hive stand legs, or all over. I had a swarm go right to the premier foundation I just unpacked, just got it off the truck, just cut the plastic off, just put the bands off, just brought it out to the yard and stuck it next on the stand next to some boxes. I'm thinking, what in the world's going on? Now I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, okay, great. Which one of my hives are doing this? And it's got me scared. And there was a minute there where I actually had fun with it. And then I had to check myself. One of these swarms was massive. It took 2 10-frame deep boxes to put it back together. Now, I know for a fact that it was not one of my colonies. Where this thing came from, who knows? It could have been a tree. I don't have any beekeepers really close to me, and the ones that I do, I've sold bees to. Where'd this thing come from? Who knows? Does it matter? Not really. But here's the thing. There is probably 7 or 8 pounds of bees on a hive stand, inches away from 2 other colonies. And it was gorgeous. It's beautiful. How much time am I going to spend sorting that out? Well, me 5 years ago, as much time as it would take, because I'm there for the experience and I'm getting my free bees. So I told myself, okay, you can give yourself just a minute or two to dabble and play with this, and that's about it. So here I am, I'm looking, and there I spotted her almost right away. As soon as I told myself, you have got to move on, you can't spend 30 minutes fooling with this swarm. It's a now or never kind of a thing. I look, there she is. I grabbed her. I put her into a queen cage. I put her into a box. And it was, I think Jake has maybe a couple photos or video. We were so hot and heavy. There was no cameras or anything except for what Jake had on his phone. I reach down with my hands literally, and I'm just scooping up just gobs, a pound of bees. It had to have been in my hand at once, and they're warm and they're tickly and they are so chilled out and it was so amazing and the energy was awesome, right? And I'm just picking them up and I'm dumping them into the box, and got a couple handfuls of that. There's so many bees. I gave myself that extra 30 seconds or a minute just to check to see if I had any other queens that might be running around. And then all of a sudden, just as fast as I gave myself the time to do it, there was an internal clock that said, move on. Whatever's there is there, but you have got work to do. And that's it. I left them alone, came back 2 hours later. Everything was in the box. On the other 2 swarms that I seen, same situation. I put what I could into a box and walked away. Now, 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have drugged that thing out all night long to make sure that I was facetious and through every single part of that swarm, got every single queen. Why does that matter? Because the real asset on the farm aren't those 3 swarms that I just caught. It's the other 250 or 260 colonies that are growing, we're looking to be in production, that have genetics that I need, that I want, that I'm moving forward. That's a big deal. So some folks are saying, Greg, you're an idiot. Why wouldn't you spend the time to get those free bees? Well, maybe I should have. But what I do know is I got to spend a lot more time going through my other colonies and making sure everything looked good, that everything looked right, that they had feed, that they had a pollen patty, that they were exactly where they needed so I can chart their course for growth. So it was extremely freeing to be able to do that. Why does that matter? Because as you grow, whether you have 1 colony, 5, 10, or 100, you have to allow yourself time, spend time doing some of those things that excite you, that you love to do, but you also have to know when it's time to move on, and you got to cut the loss for whatever that it is. So as you grow and when you decide, do I want to raise nukes? Do I want to raise queens? Do I want to raise honey? Do I want to make candles? Do I want to collect pollen? Do I want to have value add products? Do I want to have flavored honey? Do I want to have creamed honey? Do I want to make beeswax blankets? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But you have to spend time to figure out what it is. Are you on fire about? I am not on fire about catching swarms. I've got nothing against swarms, and I love that people are excited. But for me, swarms are literally that stepping over $1 to pick up a quarter. And so that's a big deal. I know I keep saying it. I know folks are probably tired of hearing it, but I'm going to beat that horse continuously, because it wasn't until I accepted that and actually started practicing that before the business really started to grow. And that is a really big deal. So there are a lot of different ways. I mean, we could have series on how to make money in the bees, nuke edition, how to make money with bees, queen edition,
Sure.
how to make money, So if there's any specific questions, Bruce, maybe we could tackle that. But I get a little fired up about these kind of things because I have just learned in the hard way so much, and have lost so much money trying to figure all these things out, that a couple of these things I feel like are just a message that I just need to put out there and give to folks.
Greg, a thought just came to mind. I think that this would be an awesome time to talk about this, because like you said, we could literally talk. We could do an entire live chat just on making nukes and selling nukes, or on making honey and selling honey. On each category of this, we could do it as a group, and we could each do it individually, and interviews with other people. We can, there's so many different ways to do that. But one thing I like to bring into this, at this point in the chat, is talk a little bit to the community that you've established, that we've established, each of, in your case, the community that you've established through your whole, I guess, Be the Lighthouse campaign, so to speak, through the Nature's Image Farm campaign, and how you think that has benefited. What are you trying to accomplish with that? Obviously, it's helping your business, but I think that's part of it, but I think there's a bigger meaning to what you're doing. And I think what we're doing with the whole stream team thing just kind of piggybacks onto that. But kind of talk to that a little bit, the community that you're working on, and how you think that's going to help you moving forward with everything you're trying to do.
Thanks, Bruce. Be the Lighthouse.
Oops.
Then it's more than a hashtag. It's more than a slogan. It's something that we walk daily, and you'll get it, Bruce. It's fine.
We're fighting
on
each
the
other.
big screen.
I'm trying. There you
mice
are.
away. Wow. Nice job.
Me and Brian are both trying to.
You guys are going back and forth to see who can put this big ugly
We were
mug
just-
up
we
on
were
the,
Like
the
Laurel
screen
and
here.
Hardy.
We were just trying to distract you, Greg, while you were trying to collect your thoughts there. We were trying to mess you up.
That's okay. I'm plumb wore out. I am literally I just got here in time, and I'm drinking my dinner, which was a high quality K cup of coffee. So I'm running on fumes. So bear with me. Be the lighthouse is something that we just don't talk. It's something that we walk out, and it's important for us to kind of understand that. We said it a million times, but bees are just a conduit to the people. When you put people first, and you're doing things for the right reason, and God is the center of your life, everything follows suit. That was the easiest thing in the world is once we, I wouldn't say realize that or accepted that, but once we really put the effort into doing what we can for others, everything else followed. When you put people first, no matter what that cost you, everything else falls in line, because there is a greater good, a greater mission outside of ourselves. We've said it a million times. Bees are just a conduit to the people. What we have found by just helping folks, being honest, operating with integrity, seeing everybody try to do well, we are in a blessed situation where we have a roof over our head, we have clothes on our back, we have food for the kids, and so do our bees. Our bees have boxes, our bees have feed, our bees have equipment. Be the Lighthouse is just something that we have here. It's something that we practice, that everybody in some shape or form is also practicing, where we are just the lighthouse itself. We are just shining God's light through us. And when you incorporate that into your beekeeping, it's amazing and beautiful to see how everything is tied together. Here at the farm, one of the things that we do, we sell bees. I know it's like, wow, they sell bees. I had no idea. We sell packages, we sell nukes, and we sell queens. Now, you would think that for folks who are selling bees, it would be in our financial best interest to sell people junk bees and to let them fail every single year so they come back and buy bees every single year. But we say it all the time. We are some of the worst bee salespeople in the world, because we try to just sell bees to people one time. Things happen, we'll sell you bees the second time. But I've had folks that I consider friends that lost bees 4 and 5 years in a row. And when they placed their order again, I said, hey, I'm not selling you bees this year. What do you mean? Not until you actually invest in the things that you need to do to actually maintain and care for these bees. Let me see you do that first, and then let's talk about bees. They did that, and it was a whole other thing. I haven't had to sell them bees ever again. It's not about selling people bees. Yeah, we need to make a living, right? We have to make ends meet. But I want to be able to have folks that, yes, when they buy bees, they are learning how to keep those bees alive. They are learning how to turn these bees as an asset into a yield. And it's not rocket science, but it's something that we do. And that's our mission here with the Learning Yard, is to help folks, whether they're our nuke or package customers or free for military veterans, get them here to the farm, and let's learn these things hands-on. Let's talk about what is going on right now out in the field, and let's literally take that talk and put it into action and go right out to the Learning Yard and see things hands-on. It's been a beautiful opportunity because we have folks that are doing amazing. One guy, I'm going to brag on him. He's going to hate it. But Roy Adams is my newbie through Hives for Heroes. I mean, he grabbed the bull by the horns. He jumped right in there. He's been here to help. He's been here to learn. Roy's making splits first year, has over colonies that are overwintering. He's trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? Is putting plans together for growth to make some side income. That's a super big deal. And I think a lot of folks can do it if that is the route that you want to go. So Be the Lighthouse is a way that we can just pass on some of the things that we have been blessed with and gifted with in this life, and pass that along to folks to help them do well, to do better, and enjoy this beekeeping experience.
Man, I love that. And that's, I think, I've just always, I've never regretted serving or helping another person. It's not something I always want to do, but as I've watched you grow from a distance, you know, a lot of what you're doing, you're sinking a lot of money into creating an environment so people can learn. And I think that speaks a lot. You know, that speaks volumes to what you're doing up there, because, you know, you didn't have to build the new building and create an environment for folks to come and hang out and learn. And you didn't have to create a learning yard. You didn't have to do any of that. But by doing that, I think people understand that you're sincere about what you're doing, and what you just said really rings true to me. And I would like someday to do something similar, but you know, right now I just try to let people hang out with me some and try to learn a little bit, and hopefully through the videos it helps a little bit as well. But I think you're doing a lot of really good things up there, Greg. And Brian, you've been there, you've witnessed it, and hopefully I can get up there, you know, sometime this year, and that'll be a lot of fun to come up and kind of see that thing firsthand. But I would really like to do something similar to that, Greg. I think that's a really good thing you're doing up there. And I've just learned, and like you said, if you help other people out, if your goal is really to help other people succeed, and that doesn't just apply to beekeeping, it applies in everything in life, whether it's beekeeping or, you know, whatever it is that you are passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
If you can help others succeed, it can be just great for you and for those people. And I think people that have that attitude typically are more successful in the long run. It may not seem like it at first. There's a lot of competition in this world, a lot of people trying to get on top, and a lot of people are willing to step on others to get there. But the people I think that have the sure foundation, the people that have the strong foundation walls that are built, are those that build it, you know, together with other people. You know, I think that's the, you know, if you look at, and to get a little bit, I'm not sure, hope I don't get in trouble here, but you talked about how your grandfather was a preacher. You know, to get a little bit, you know, the foundation, the true rock is Jesus Christ. I mean, his whole goal, his whole life, his whole mission was to help people, you know, through the great sacrifice that he did. And so that's the attitude I think that you're taking there, Greg, and hopefully we all are, is to just help lift others. And as you lift others, you know, you'll be able to be successful as well. You know, they say the rising tide lifts all boats. And so you try to create that situation where everyone's having success and everybody, you know, grows together, including you. And so it works out well. Wow, this has been intense here for the first hour.
1 hour already.
Yeah, we're an hour already.
We're just warming up to get to it. And I know a lot of folks are, this might not be their cup of tea, but we gave you fair warning ahead of time. We're raw, we're real, we're speaking from the heart, and we're speaking and just sharing our experience with our business and in life. And if that's not for you, that's totally cool. But this is when you wake up every morning and what you do is more than just about making a dollar. When you wake up every morning and it's more than going up and showing up to your 9 to 5 to make somebody else a dollar. When things have a long standing action consequence, when we're working for things that are greater than for today, for this week, for this month, for this year, but the rest of our lives and maybe thereafter, that's a big deal. And I know we're all going to be on different pages with that, and that's totally okay. But this is how we've chosen to incorporate what we love to do, what we're passionate about, and that's being stewards of this land on God's green earth with this blessing and this gift to do it. This is how we are going to give God the glory for it. And this is how we are going to continue to work people and bring people into the fold, into this community as a beekeeping fellowship. And I think when that is your focus, nothing else matters. Folks that disagree or they don't like it, that's okay. But
wow, Brian.
Sheesh.
Brian, that's amazing, man. I appreciate that, friend. Brian came down and helped me do some splits about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. And actually, I'm going to insert a little shameless plug here. Brian did a great job. He actually texts me several days a week, and we kind of talk about what's going on between our bees. And so he's become a good friend. But video for that, you know, the results of those splits is coming out as soon as I can get it. I'm almost there. I've got a little bit more editing to do on it, just getting close. So, but Greg, I'd like to kind of turn this and you know, we're kind of, you know, the title of this was Making Money with Bees. And so we've addressed some of that. But but I kind of like to turn it a little different direction. And maybe you guys could each, as we kind of work through this chat here the next few minutes, Greg, talk about the process a little bit of how you and Susie and your family kind of established this, you've already addressed it a little bit, but it's kind of established your base mission, so to speak, or your, kind of your whole name and your logo. Just kind of talk about the process that it took to get to that point, because that's one thing I struggle with is really, what is my mission? Like, how can I know I have a really general idea. Mainly I want to help people and raise bees, but how do you get it narrowed down to, this is our logo, this is our top, this is what our mission is, and we're going to do this together as a family? What was that process that you and Susie took to do that? How long did it take you to kind of figure that out? That's a tough question.
This is going to be high in the this is going to be very high in the gods per minute. So if you're easily offended, then fair warning. I don't believe in coincidence, and I do believe in divine intervention, and I believe that God's got a plan for all of us. We've had this name from the very beginning, before we even knew what the direction was. My son Jake and I, we were trying to figure out, what is it that we are going to do on this homestead. One of the things that we were absolutely on fire and passionate about early on, and has really helped build the core of who we are, what we do, but more importantly, how we think of things. And I know he doesn't listen to these chats at all, but I'm still going to throw his name out there because he was one of the biggest lighthouses in our life in the very beginning that really helped set us down this course. But my son Jake went out to a grazing workshop out in Mobley, Missouri. And there was a rancher named Greg Judy out there. And what was really interesting is I had spent a few months traveling around, visiting talks that a fella gave by the name of Mark Shepard. And Mark Shepard is an author, but more importantly, a permaculture practitioner who goes beyond just talking about making change. He is the change that he wants to see in this world by going out there and planting perennial agriculture, hazelnuts, getting into raising food systems that make sense for all scales, but something that can scale up and can be something that can create revenue. When we talk about permaculture and systems thinking, we came into a lot of this in that lens where everything that we look at was a system. Everything was one part had to feed the other, to where the goal at the end of the day was have the least possible, which means the least amount of waste, or the least of matters leaving the property. If you think about your business or your life as a hillside, and when it rains, that rain hits the very top of that hillside. And what does it do? It runs downhill. What can we do to soak in and absorb as much as that rain as possible without leaving fastly and eroding the soil and leaving the very bottom of the property and leaving off to the next? I know that's a weird way of thinking about things, but when we look at life and we look at resources and we look at assets, everything can get built on that. So my son Jake and I, which a lot of you know and have met on the cameras one time here with our YouTube channel, Jake and I were at a grazing workshop at Greg Judy's place, but Mark Shepard was there, and we're trying to figure out the future of the farm. And we're sitting there, and it's just one of those things that just hits you right upside of the face, and you just know, okay, whatever this is, buckle up. And it was the idea of farming in nature's image. And right away, the name Nature's Image Farm, we got smacked right upside of the head with it. And it was all, God put it right on our heart and gave it to us. From right then and there, we came home. We filed the name, the LLCs, and everything has been history ever since. What has been beautiful about that is Nature's Image Farm has been able to be a huge umbrella for whatever enterprise that we brought into the farm. Had we named our farm the Burns Family Chicken Enterprise, boy, we'd have been in trouble. Can you imagine all the shirts and the hats and the logos and the LLCs and all the business filings and all of this and all of that? right, to all go under a Schedule F. Come on. So we were blessed with given the name Nature's Image Farm because we want to work with nature rather than against it. So no matter what we do, we are trying to find ways to work with nature, work with whatever it is that whatever system that we're bringing in, so that each system works within itself. So that's where the name, that part of the name comes from. I could spend another hour scripturally where you will know a tree by its fruit, like a tree planted by the rivers of water. There's so many scriptures that refers to trees, roots, bearing fruit, knowing a tree by its fruit. And I'm going to give a little plug to our buddy Brian. Brian stopped out last year to the Learning Yard and did an interview. And in that interview, we kind of tackled what exactly does our farm name mean. And we kind of do a little deep dive. So I would encourage folks, Brian can drop a link to that at some point if you can find that, if you want to learn more about that. But that's how we kind of started off. And what that allowed us to do was throw things like turkeys and chickens and rabbits and nursery stock and then bees under this farm name umbrella until the thing that we were supposed to do and when our calling was realized, now it's bees. And so that's how bees kind of fit into that system. But it grew from not knowing what the future holds. It grew from not knowing what it is that we were trying to do financially at a business. All we knew that there was a fire that was stirred and kindled on the inside of us. We didn't know what it meant. We didn't know where it would go, and we didn't know what it would be for. But all we knew that we take one step forward and one step forward and one step forward. Now, all these years later, here we are with the mission, with the ministry, with the enterprise, with the business. But it has been a journey for many, many years to kind of get to this point, Bruce.
Man, such good stuff. I will tell folks, Greg, you and I have had some pretty frank conversations, and the thing I do like about discussing things with you one-on-one and including Brian and others in some of these conversations is just the frank nature with what you speak. I mean, you don't sugarcoat it. You've been there, you've done that, you've been through it. And so I think that if I can somehow learn from you, I've learned a lot already, but continue to learn from you, I think I'll avoid a lot of mistakes and error moving forward. And obviously we each have our own way, our own light that we're supposed to shed and do. But I think it's wise to learn from those who have been there before. Brian, why don't you tell us a little about how you came up with your deal and how you were able to kind of arrive at your mission with what you're doing with your bees and Castle Hives.
Castle Hives. So the name Castle, that's my mother's maiden name.
Okay.
And that's as simple as that. I just, when I was very first thinking about, and it was just from people in the family saying, hey, can you film, when you're doing stuff with the hives, we'd love to see it. And I'm like, sure. When I was trying to think of a name, and I just thought, well, Castle, and, they're hives. So it was just as simple as that, really. And, there's a little bit more meaning, though, just if I think back in the family, because my grandfather he was a beekeeper way many, many years back. So pre-Varroa, I'll say that. So this, you're probably talking about in the 50s. So for me to have those colonies at that property, there's a little bit of that, it's just a special meaning to me. Just because, I could see my grandfather looking down and, I'm carrying along the work that he did many years ago. As far as, gosh, like a mission statement, I can't even say anything close to what Greg says. The whole entire statement, or like the meaning behind Nature's Image Farm, for me, it's just, I look at Castle Hives and I just kind of want to carry that name just because it's the family name there. It's my mother's maiden name and my grandfather's last name. And I just always want to stay as much as what these people are saying, I'm some closet sideliner. I just always want to stay that Northeast Ohio hobbyist beekeeper, and that's it, and I do. I enjoy the intimacy, so that's why I just always want to stay in that realm, and just to show people, I think more now. I've been trying to improve like what I film and the content that I share, because when I very first started, there really wasn't much out there. If you look back, this will be my 7th season. So if you go back some years, there really wasn't much. I think one of the first videos that I saw for beekeeping was someone assembling a flow hive. And the only reason why I looked that up is because I bought my mother a flow hive. That's how I got started. So, you know, I think that's more behind what drives me now is just I know there's a lot of new beekeepers out there, and some people, if there's people out there and they're watching, if I'm a brand new beekeeper and I tune in and if I look at, those that are big in like the YouTube beekeeping realm, if I'm a new beekeeper and I'm looking at Ian Stepler and he's walking into this, building with 1,600 colonies, I'm going to look at it like, I'll probably have a look on my face like I was just staring at Latin. Same thing like anyone going through a nuke yard or even at your scale, when you're going through and like the day when you were with Seth and you're looking at all those colonies, the newbie will be very intimidated, and they're just going to step back and be like, oh my gosh, I thought I knew an ounce of information, but I don't know anything. So that's, I think, why I stay where I'm at in that realm is just because, I can manage the number of colonies I have. I can put out content that hopefully will help others, and like the video I did today, as far as transparency, I lost a colony. I show all that because that's real, and that's what more drives me also with the channel is I want everybody to know that, if they do think of Castle Hives, for me, it just has that family meaning behind it. But I want people to think, well, it's a Northeast Ohio beekeeper and the guy's pretty honest with his content. He shows us if he screws up, he shows us where he has success. And, that's that. So
I like that, man. Speaking of transparency, my next video is going to be quite transparent as well. Seth, a little heads up on how those splits went. I mean, you'll find out in the video. They did okay, but they did not do as well as I'd hoped they would.
I saw someone ask how Big Red was doing earlier.
Well, as of when I made the video, she was doing okay, but I haven't been back out there. That happened last Friday, and it may be another week or two before I get down there with the pollination bees coming back. I wanted to start to wind this thing down a little bit. I wanted to address this question from Pennsylvania beekeeper here. A little bit about tell us how, when, why you decided to go sideliner, and how do you manage selling honey retail all while holding down a job? That is an awesome question. and the truth is it's very difficult, and I really am obsessed with this. I have a very patient wife, and almost every minute that I'm not at work or at church, I'm just either thinking about bees or in my bees or working on a video, or I'm obsessed with it. And fortunately, in my case, my kids, my youngest daughter is a freshman in college. And so, we're empty nesters, and my wife is very patient with me on this. And so that's how I do it. I kind of decided to be a sideliner pretty early on. I don't know if I even knew what that was, but I did know that I wanted to grow. My goal, I don't know why, but really from a very early time, I wanted to have 100 hives. That's just what I wanted to do. And I had no idea what it was going to take to get there, and I had no idea how much work it was going to be. I just really had no idea at all. And now I've been at that level or above that level, for the last 2 to 3 years, pretty consistently. I've dropped down below it a little bit, but I always get right back up there, and I've kind of just learned to manage it. But it is just literally, I'm just working on it. I'm thinking about it all the time. And as far as retailing honey, the actual retailing of it is not the difficult part. It's I basically I just, people, it's word of mouth. I have different stores that sell my honey. I'll just, walk in occasionally and talk to somebody. And I've had some good friends that have reached out to me, and it's just kind of worked, Greg. There's no mistake. There's no accident. There are no coincidences. Some of the people that I've known from, like, my biggest buyer of my honey, they have a big, it's kind of like it's a farm called Appling Farms nearby here, and they sell produce, and it's just, that's their business. They grow the vegetables, the fruit, and it's a really big business they have here. They do events out there. And I used to work with Tommy Appling's wife, and they were having issues trying to stay stocked with honey, because they sell literally thousands of people going there every year. It's like a huge thing. It's a huge draw in this area, and they couldn't keep up with the honey. So she reached out to me, or she asked if I would be interested in selling honey to them, and I said sure. This is back before I had enough, really. And Tommy, her husband, reached out to me, and we just established that relationship, and I'm able to keep them supplied and year round, and they have really kept me afloat with my honey sales. I mean, I do sell retail to individuals. I've got it in some other stores, but the stores lately have become my biggest seller, and so it works out well. And Appling Farms have been by far my biggest, and so we're working on an order right now actually for them. But I've just been blessed, man. I just really have. I've just been able to have the energy and the strength and the continued desire to do it, and I think about it literally probably way more than I should. And I'm still trying to get better at it. So that's kind of how I've done that, is I just nose to the grind, just tenacious, as Bob Benny said, just trying to keep getting better. And, but I don't have the gift of being able to focus, like Greg, for example, how you guys, I have a hard time really putting it down on paper, really getting a mission statement, so to speak. I just I'm pretty good at listening to ideas. I'm pretty good at listening to things I want to do. But as far as narrowing it down to an exact business plan, I kind of have a hard time doing that. And so that is a weakness that I have, and I've got to improve if I ever want to really make it into a business to where I make a decent profit. And, I just love it. I just really do. I love everything about it. And so it hasn't been hard for me to be motivated. But I just, it's hard to really focus. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I feel like it's my calling. I mean, I'm passionate about this more than I've been about, besides my family and besides the gospel. And I used to be passionate like this about football, but I'm getting old and I still love football. But this is the most passionate I've ever been about anything in my life like this. I've tried several things. I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial desire, but nothing has ever grabbed me like these little bugs in a box. And I'm not sure why. Greg, we talked about how when you were down here, you interviewed me. There's something divine about it. I don't know how to describe it. I've got this idea of a video I want to do where I try to bring that into it. I haven't figured out how to do it yet. But one day I hope to create a video where I kind of bring some of that feeling into it, where it's just the miracle of nature and the miracle of the honeybee, and just try to kind of bring that feeling in and help people feel that divine nature of the honeybee. I really do believe that if you look in a beehive, there's no way, in my opinion, that you could deny that there's a God or divine creator out there. So,
Bruce,
thoughts.
Where you're sitting at right now, and I don't want to stretch this on to some, we could be here for hours talking about, the making money with bees, but a 5-minute answer. Okay. We're limited to 5 minutes. All right.
Yeah.
Where you're situated at right now, and with the number of colonies, and with you bringing in the newer genetics just to kind of tame, the wildness that you have in some of your colonies, where do you see yourself as far as, because you have so many different roads that you're going down as far as, making money with your bees. Where do you see yourself as far as like pollination versus making bees like queens? do you see yourself continuing down that pollination road, or do you see yourself just saying, hey, this year was kind of like there were issues, of course, that were related to
Sure.
the weather, but had you had those colonies at home, you could have already been working on X number of other, things
Endeavors.
with those colonies. Yeah, endeavors.
Sure.
Where do you see yourself?
Well, great question, Brian. I'm not really sure. I do know that I as I get more efficient with the bees, what I kind of see myself in the future is determining exactly how many bees I need to provide the honey that I need to provide to make the money I want to make with my honey. That's kind of always been my first priority. And then I see, if I can get above that number, I don't think that, especially working full time, I really can't do much more than I'm doing now, especially with the pollination stuff. So I see possibly still sending a few out, but I would like to also get into, maybe some nuke sales and some queens in the future. And we've talked a little bit about that. Greg and I've talked a little bit about kind of how to do that. And we're going to do an interview about that, I think, coming up pretty soon about, maybe some ideas on that. And so it's hard for me to say, where do I see myself like in 5 years? It really depends on if I can cut back at work a little bit or if I can retire from my real job. If I could retire, I think I could just really blow this thing up. But when my wife brought me the tax information and I realized how much I really made last year, I'm a long ways from doing that. But Greg and I have talked a little bit about how when you go all in, if you plan things out right, and Greg, you even talked about this a little bit tonight, I think, about how you can it just gives back to you if you go all in and commit to what you're doing and you have a plan and you go by what basically what the Spirit is telling you to do. If you follow what the Lord wants you to do, He's going to multiply you many times. And so I think that's kind of where I'm at. That's a very ambiguous and that's really a non-answer, because the truth is I really don't know where I'm going to be. I haven't committed to do pollination. I haven't committed not to do pollination. I'm going to really look at these colonies and see how they look. It's been a really hard year out there on the almond growers, on the beekeepers, on the broker. It's just been a hard year for bees and the almonds. But we'll see how they look. I know that they did have some fly time. I know that it was extended over a extended period of time, but I know that Jose, our bees were actually pollinating some of the same farmers' bees that Jose brokers for. And so he actually he knows the guys where they were. They have thousands and tens of thousands of colonies they bring in every year to pollinate their almonds. And so I don't know, man, I wish I could give you an exact, that's my problem, is I don't have an exact idea. And Greg's helping me work through some of this stuff kind of behind the scenes, kind of getting this figured out. But I just love, man, last night I get off work. I know I got the pollination bees coming in. It's 5:30, and there was a guy up in Ozark, Jeff, that helped us harvest honey. He and his wife helped us, his wife, Jessie, last summer. He said, hey, you got a 5-gallon bucket you'll sell me? I'm like, sure. And so I just took it up there to Ozark where he lives. And I'm like, well, while I'm here, I need to check my bees in Ozark and see how they're doing. And by the way, Greg, a couple of your queens up there are just like double deeps and I need to add boxes type of thing. Some of them it's really weird because some of them are just like that. And others are just starting to catch and go. I had a couple of nukes of yours that were just real weak, kind of thought. And now they're wall to wall in the nuke and they need more space, but it just took them a little bit longer to get going. But a couple of them, at least one or two of those queens are just, I got to add boxes. I mean, they're incredible. And so, but Jeff was there and he actually pulled out his bee suit. I'm like, let's go. So we went through the nukes. We marked some queens. It was getting dark and we're still out there popping lids and looking and assessing. And man, I just love that kind of stuff. I love the concept of the learning yard for that very reason, because I love to get in beehives with people and kind of show them what I'm looking at. But, I think it's been about 5 minutes from what you said, Brian, but that's it. I really, I don't have the vision. I don't have the mission statement. I don't have the organization yet that Greg has, but I kind of, the picture is coming more clear into view. And really the next couple of years are going to determine what direction I go. if I can physically stay strong and healthy enough to do bees at a pretty high level physically, then I see myself trying to go pretty much commercial within the next hopefully five years or so. But I'm 55 years old, so I'm pretty tough now. But every year I'm starting to feel it more and more, and so I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do that. But I'll always, unless I can't walk, I'll always do something with bees, even if it's traveling around talking about them, coming and visiting, helping you guys out, whatever. I'm going to try to do something because it's just, unless I just lose interest, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of start to wind this thing down. It's been a great chat tonight. I really appreciate you guys being on here. I appreciate everyone in the comments in the chat that have participated tonight. I appreciate all the super chats. I hope I recognized everybody. If I didn't, I certainly appreciate that. That just really helps. It helps, just helps keep the channel and the stream team thing rolling, and we do appreciate that. I guess we can kind of close here. Kind of what's happening in the future in the next week or two. What are you guys up to, Greg? What are you up to in the next week or two?
Well, we just got back from the first package route that was sold out, and it was awesome meeting so many new faces. And it's gonna be great seeing them at the learning yard, as well as the folks from last year too. That's been incredible. We just sold out on nukes for the year. We're now into July, August, September on queens. I've got some. I'm so far behind on everything right now. I know folks probably get it, whether how patient or not they are. That's yet to be determined as far as how much content that we're putting out there. I took a couple quick photos today where today was a special day because as we are talking about what we're doing with our business and trying to move forward, what our name means, what our mission statement is, and what it is that we're doing to financially make money on the farm with bees. It's always important to, I think, keep a couple things when things show up in front of you, to just appreciate it. But here we are, pushing hard, and we're way, every year we get tighter and tighter and tighter, and we're way further ahead. You always feel like you're behind. But today was special because we put our first round of grafts in, which is a series of sequences that all have to come in line first. And there are so many breeder queens that I've had my eye on all last year, and then especially now that they've came through the wintertime. And so when it's time to graft and have the initial maiden voyage of setting grafts in, I'm thinking, which queen do I choose? Here we are in a position where we have an abundance of beautiful queens that have been a lighthouse to us and other folks in their apiaries. As soon as I'm asking myself, man, I don't know which ones to go dig through. Do I do it based on color? Do I do it based on all these things too? Little things that you think about. As soon as I asked the question, it came to me is we were to choose from a lighthouse queen. And so for folks who have kind of followed us along, those storms came through. God spoke, we listened, we put our last round of grafts in, even though we didn't want to. We had no need for them. We thought, we put those grafts in, and then came through, wiped out a bunch of colonies, but yet all the abundance was right there in that horizontal hive, in that lighthouse colony. All those queens, of course, then went out to colonies and things like that. So we've been watching those too. So that was a tremendous lighthouse to us and others. So it was fitting that this year's queen was a lighthouse queen that we grafted from, a queen that weathered the storm, that we learned a lot from, and has been a part of not only our farm's story, but has been an incredible opportunity to share God's grace with us. And so it was awesome today to sit there and put the very first grafts of the season in from one of those lighthouse breeder queens. It was awesome. So today I'm on cloud 9 because of that. The good news is, as ugly as I am and as old as I'm getting, the good news is I can still see larvae and I still have the touch, so I can still get in there and do the work. Every year as we get older and you wake up and you're creaky and you're oh my gosh, what's the year going to hold? The good news is I still got it. So I'm looking forward to that. We're on track to graft somewhere between 1,200 and 2,000 queens this year. Not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but that's where we're at with our business enterprise to have queens be financially sustainable and to create some revenue. So I'm really excited. I've got so many great interviews from the Honey in the Hills beekeeping conference, interviews from the Hive Life conference, videos that we've shot here as well to get out. Susan and I are going to be back on track on our Sunday night farm chats here this coming Sunday. So there's so many things that I'm excited about, but the biggest thing I'm excited about is the people this year. Just fellowshipping with so many great new folks and also a lot of the folks from last year. We've finally got the new shop so much further along than we could have ever dreamed. And it's been awesome to have a big, beautiful place to have our supplies, to bring folks in. That's been incredible. Bruce, this talk tonight, when we talk about making money with bees, folks, when they see the thumbnail or they see the description, they might be thinking that they're tuning in to find all of the sham wow maze of finding how to make a quick buck and how to do this and how to do that. One thing that I want to remind folks is that there are no shortcuts to being successful. You might find a shortcut to finding success in a certain thing, but there are no shortcuts to being successful. And a lot of these things are a lot of hard lessons learned, a lot of trial and error, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's what it takes when you do these things at a business. And beekeeping as a business isn't for everybody. Not to say that those who are, that they're somehow on a pedestal or it has nothing to do with that. It's just what it takes to do beekeeping at a level where it is creating enough revenue to sustain your needs in that enterprise are conversations that we could have every single day of the week and month of the year and never really fully scratch the surface into all those things. But I want to ask folks a couple questions. If you're thinking about getting into beekeeping as a business, are you raising bees? Why are you raising bees? I want you to focus on the why. Every time you ask yourself why, I want you to chase that why with another why, to the point where you're that annoying kid who's constantly asking yourself why, because it helps you get past the you and get to the heart of the matter. Why do you want to keep bees? Why do you want to make money with bees? What are you the most passionate about with your beekeeping? Where have you found the greatest success? What are your leverage points within your beekeeping that you are doing so well that you could turn that yield into an asset? That's a big deal. How much money do you need financially out of this enterprise for you to validate, but more importantly, justify putting more time into? That's a big deal. That's a hard question, but it's one that needs answered before you go investing in bees, investing in equipment, but investing in yourself. We're only on this earth for a short amount of time. How much time are you investing in all the things that you're doing? If the question is, start a beekeeping business or get caught up on the Walking Dead Netflix series, I'm just going to say this. I think beekeeping for a business probably isn't for you. And I mean that lovingly. But when Bruce is talking about all he's thinking about is bees, and it is totally encompassing every aspect of his life. When you are self-employed and you're running a business, whether it's bees, whether it's a car wash, or whether you're a salesman, when you are giving your all into something that you're putting your name in and that you are growing from the ground up, you're going to eat, sleep, breathe, sweat, and bleed it. That is part of that entire journey. So don't be afraid of when you start asking yourself those tough questions, when the answers are uncomfortable. You really have to get uncomfortable before you can find that place, before you are comfortable walking through those open doors that you don't know what's on the other side. And when you get to the point to where you say, you know what, I think a couple of these things do make sense for me to invest more of my time in and to invest financially in, what I want you to do is walk it backward. What do you need a year out of this to where now you own your time to invest into it, to do it well? Not halfway, not part of the way, not some of the way, but how much time is it going to take you to invest into this, to do it well, to earn that income? Once you find out what that dollar sign means for you, now it's easy. Now it's walking it backwards, finding out I need this many colonies, this much equipment, this much feed, this many frames, these many customers, this many products. I know that sounds like it's an oversimplification of the process, but we all want to start from where we're at, and you will constantly chase your tail and run around in circles if you think, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to split my bees and I'm going to grow them, and I got more bees and I got da 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 da. You'll never get to the point to where if you just spend some time figuring out, well, where do I actually want to be? Walk it backwards and see if it makes sense. And what you'll likely find is all of us are probably overambitious. And where we want to be is not somewhere we can get to this year or maybe 5 years. But when we walk it all the way back and figure out what do we need to grow to that point, now we find out what is within our realm of possibility to do. And that is a super big deal. The last thing I want to leave you with is there are no quick, cheap, or easy answers when it comes to any of these kind of things. That there are so many opportunities where you don't even, I know where they come from, but they almost come out of the blue to where you're thinking, man, what is going on here? When doors open, you have to be comfortable walking through and get uncomfortable and know that God's opening doors and you're taking that step forward. You are going to lose a lot of sleep. You are going to try to figure out how are you going to pay this invoice? How are you going to pay for this truckload? You are going to go through all of that. It is not going to be pretty. It's going to be ugly. It's going to hurt. But the good news is, if God has a plan for you for beekeeping as a business, then he will make a way, and it's up to you to walk through that open door. And that's the last thing I'm going to leave you with.
Thanks, Greg. Brian, what's going on, man? What you got coming up?
Man, I tell you, the one thing that I did not, before I say what's coming up in the next week or so, I did not say that last week. It was Tuesday, I believe it was. Let me see here. Yeah, Tuesday. I went and spoke at a local school system to the 6th grade students, and there was probably about 100 of them in total. There was 2 groups, and those little kids, I mean, they were on it. They knew so much about beekeeping already that there were some things that I was, asking them some questions, and if they knew, and you could tell those that studied, because they were just, hand was straight up, and they just knew it. But they are in the next month or so, they're getting some bees also, and I'm going to go down and help the students that will work with the bees. I'm going to help them install the packages, and the teacher's as nervous as all get out because she's never had bees before either. So she asked me when I was leaving, she said, can I email you or text you, when we get our bees, and you could come down and help us? I said, sure. So, but no, it was just an awesome experience going down and talking to those kids. But coming up, I've got, I think as of tomorrow, there was a little pause in my hive stand building just because we're getting quail. So I got our quail hutch done yesterday. I just wanted to have that ready just because I figured if I need to split the hives, I can set them on bricks or whatever, so the stands that's kind of like a luxury item to have. But tomorrow I've got all the wood cut. I've got 3 done, and I've got, 2 cut and enough wood for another. So, I'm going to keep banging those out and just get the yard completely set up. I want to go through and clean sticks, and there's a stump that needs cut. So it's just prep. But I'm kind of getting down to the wire, and it's like almost into that nerves phase, just because not August. I keep saying August, but it's April. April 25th is when my first batch of queens arrive. So I need to, that'll be on a Tuesday. I need to, couple days before that, do my splits. So, my next trip over, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of position everything out in the yard. I'm going to carry boxes out and just kind of count everything. So if there's any last minute needs ahead of time, I know, well, I'm going to call that bozo up there and say, hey, I screwed up in my count and I'm going to cruise down here one day. Yeah. If I can get that done before this Saturday, that would be great, just because I am looking forward to going down and seeing what happens with the learning yard this year down at Nature's Image Farm. I mean, that's just last year seeing just everything over the whole entire course of the year, all of those new beekeepers just learn throughout the year. It was great to be a part of that. And this year I'm just really looking forward to going down and spending some time. And, but yeah, that's, in the next, I think 2 weeks are probably going to be super busy just because it's prep for the splits, doing the splits and then, dropping in the queens. And tomorrow, like what Greg was saying, tomorrow we've got the first batch of quail eggs are going to be delivered. So those will get started in the incubator. So I know what Greg's talking about there, but it's just that busy time of the year. I mean, we're in it, we've got the dandelions and everything else. So you go over to the colonies, and I think I threw an Instagram picture out there, and it goes over to the facial book too. But, the colonies are just, I mean, they are banging. So
Yeah,
I had that one loss, but it's, if I wanted to go full crazy, I'm sure the 10 colonies that I have, I could split each of them into 3.
Yeah, probably so, easily.
Yeah.
Well, well, coming up for me real quickly, the pollination bees get back tomorrow night. Hopefully, I'm hoping to drop some, our temperatures are not too hot coming up the next few days. So I think I'm going to try to drop some Formic in them pretty quick, some Formic Pro, and maybe put some honey supers on there. I'm probably not going to split them right away. I'm hoping the Formic Pro will, slow that queen down enough to keep it from wanting to swarm, maybe snap them out of any type of swarm mode they're in, and just try to stack them and pull honey. We've got it's interesting. Our privet down here is our first big flow. They're just starting to bloom a little bit. Tulip poplar's blooming now, and the tallow is tasseling, which means the blooms are starting to come out. And so that normally doesn't bloom until the end of May. So we're probably a month. I mean, we're probably at least 3 or 4 weeks ahead. It looks like. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it usually tassels this early, and so we might have a mega flow and then no flow. It might be a weird year. So I'm trying to, with the pollination bees getting back, I'm not going to split them. I usually split them all. Hopefully they'll be strong enough to make me a little bit of honey. Hope I can get the mites knocked back and then rock and roll with that. But and that's kind of where we're at. Start stacking up. Those last night I noticed that the bees are starting. You see that white wax forming in some of the supers I've already put on. Gonna start stacking supers. Gonna get the pollination bees. Hopefully, see what we have and then assess and grow there. And just it's gonna be kind of jump on and hang on here for the next month or two. It's gonna be crazy. And that's what I've been working on a lot, is just trying to get the production colonies that stay behind, the splits and everything kind of in order. And, it's put up or shut up time coming up really fast, as in tomorrow night. So, Greg, I wanted to take just a brief minute and thank you for that, for everything you've said. Brian, you as well. But the last monologue, I guess you could say, Greg, that you did was just phenomenal. I could maybe see a nugget coming out of that. It was just great stuff. It was very succinct and very clear. And really, I think, like I say, that you look at the title of this chat, Making Money with Bees. But if you want to make money with bees, those are all things. It's not all about making money. And I really like that. I appreciate that, because that's going to maybe help me along the way to be able to maybe kind of figure out, because that's my biggest problem, is being able to focus and know what to do. So I appreciate you doing that. But this has been a tremendous chat tonight. We've had a great crew in here in the chat. The conversation has been really good, and we appreciate you guys. Once again, this community there is second to none. We appreciate you being on here. We appreciate this friendship that I've developed with both of you guys. I mean, it's just, I never even knew who you were really, honestly, until, right before we kind of started this thing up. And it's just been a great opportunity, a great experience. And it's been a lot of fun. And I believe that this community is going to help move the beekeeping world forward. As a matter of fact, I know it is. I know there's even a group right here locally that really, it's just, there's a bond here, I think. And I hopefully, I believe we're contributing to that. So I appreciate you guys. I'd like to go ahead and close it out. Greg, why don't you close it out for us? You're really good at doing that. Let you go ahead and
I
close
think
it out for us.
what's important, we've said it so many times, but bees are the conduit to the people. It's when you make it about the people, the bee, I mean, everything else just, yeah, there's ways to make splits and there's ways to have better honey yields. There's way to make queens and all these things. And we enjoy talking about those kind of things, and those things matter. But when we understand, and it feels like it is our calling on earth, where bees are the conduit to the people, everything else just falls in place. There's a lot of great folks listening tonight. Next week, I have the privilege and the honor of speaking at one of the best beekeeping clubs in the state of Ohio, the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association. So many of those guys have been regulars on these streams. So many of them are always in the comments, and they follow around all three of our channels. So I just want to hat tip all the folks at FCBA. You guys are awesome. It's an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you. One of my most favorite clubs to visit with, because it's about the people. And some of the folks are some of the salt of the earth type folks that you ever did meet at that club. And I think a lot of clubs could take notice and could use them as an example of when they make their club about the people, about seeing them do well, it prospers, it does well, and people do better by the bees. That's a big deal. So for us, like I said, it's an honor to share a little bit of who we are, what we do, why we do it with everyone listening tonight. I would say, Bruce, if folks want more info on more of a pointed Q&A on things relating to making money in bees, we can certainly have those discussions later. But I feel like there's a couple things on my heart that just need to get out. Someone needed to hear tonight, and I know we'll cover a lot more in the future. I'm going to thank you guys for what you guys do. Yeah, we spend a lot of time, talking behind the scenes, trying to get things ready for upcoming chats. Just being there as fellowship and support for each other, as Bruce brags on his 85-degree days when it's 23 for me and Brian, and we're shoveling snow. Or those times where it might be 105 for Bruce, and we're out there and it's 78. In the shade here. It's we like to rub it in a little bit, but it's beekeeping is fun when you can share that with others, and when you can share that with people. There's a lot of old time ways of keeping everything to yourself, and it's all some kind of big secret. There's plenty of room at the table for everybody. There's nothing new under the sun. But one of the things that I want to encourage folks to do is be a lighthouse to somebody else. Take the time to just set them on a path. Just be a lighthouse, because Lord knows there have been so many people that have been in our life that have been a lighthouse to us as we have been that ship on tumultuous seas, not knowing which direction to go. There's been so many lighthouses that not only shed light onto dangers, turmoil, rocks just up ahead, but showed that light on what was ahead and what was possible and what we could do. And for those folks, I'll be thankful forever. So as always, I want to remind folks to be the lighthouse and to be the change that you want to see in this world. We're looking forward to seeing you on the next Stream Team Beekeeping Chat.
Everybody.